Hi, I'm Emma Chen, and this is the story of how I turned my mother's small neighborhood bakery into a multi-million-dollar empire twice. But more importantly, it's about how sometimes the sweetest revenge comes with a sprinkle of karma and a whole lot of buttercream. Our story begins in my mother's tiny bakery, Sweet Dreams, tucked away in a modest corner of San Francisco's Richmond district. Mom had started it 30 years ago, arriving from Hong Kong with nothing but her recipes and a dream. I grew up in that bakery, the scent of fresh bread and vanilla permanently etched in my memories. My sister Grace, 3 years older and infinitely more sophisticated, always saw the bakery as an embarrassment. "Why can't Mom run a real business?" she complained while attending her prestigious business school. Our friends' parents owned tech companies and law firms and were stuck with a tiny bakery. But where Grace saw shame, I saw magic. Every morning at 4 a.m., I'd help Mom prepare the day's goods. Through high school and college, I stayed, learning every recipe, every technique, every secret that made our pastries special. Even after graduating with my business degree, I chose to stay. "Emma, you're wasting your potential," Grace would say during her rare visits, always dressed in designer suits that seemed out of place among our flour-dusted counters. "With your degree, you could work in finance like me." But I had different plans. While Grace climbed the corporate ladder at Goldman Sachs, I was quietly transforming our little bakery. First came the website, then social media. I modernized our ordering system and introduced new flavors that blended Mom's traditional recipes with contemporary tastes. The turning point came 5 years ago when a food blogger discovered our green tea croissants. Suddenly, lines were forming around the block. Local tech companies started ordering our corporate breakfast packages. Hotels requested our pastries for their high-end brunches. Mom was overwhelmed but proud. "Emma," she'd say, her eyes tearing up, "you've made my little dreams so big." In 3 years, we expanded from one small shop to 5 locations across the Bay Area. Our revenue grew from $200,000 a year to over $10 million. We were featured in food magazines, won local business awards, and even had celebrities dropping by when they were in town. That's when Grace suddenly became interested in a family business again. "Emmy," she called one evening. She only used that nickname when she wanted something. "You've done an amazing job with Mom's little shop. But don't you think it's time to bring in some professional management?" I should have seen it coming. Grace had always been the smart one, the one who knew better, the one who had to control everything. But I was too busy managing our expansion to see the signs. Then came Mom's cancer diagnosis. It hit us all hard, but while I spent my days running between the bakery and hospital, Grace was making plans. She convinced Mom that the stress of owning a business wasn't good for her health. "Let me handle everything," she told Mom. "You just focus on getting better." I was in New York, meeting with potential investors for our East Coast expansion, when I received the text that would change everything. "Sold the bakery for $2 million. Good deal, right? Time to end your little hobby and get a real job. Grace." My hands shook as I called Mom, who was recovering at home. "Is it true?" I asked. "Grace said it was for the best," Mom replied weakly. "She said you were working too hard." I booked the first flight home, my mind racing. But Grace had timed everything perfectly. By the time I landed in San Francisco, the papers were signed, and our family legacy had been sold to a corporate restaurant group. But what Grace didn't know was that during those years of playing baker, I learned more than just how to make the perfect croissant. I built relationships with every supplier, every client, and every food critic in the city. And most importantly, I kept one crucial secret that would turn her moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her life. As I stood outside our former bakery, watching the workers take down the Sweet Dreams sign, a small smile played on my lips. Grace thought she'd ended my little hobby, but she was about to learn that she'd actually given me the push I needed to do something much, much bigger. The next morning, I sat in my apartment surrounded by business plans and recipe books. Grace's text messages kept coming. "Emmy, don't be dramatic. $2 million is a great deal for a bakery. You should thank me. Now you can get a real career. The corporate group will keep some of the recipes. You can still visit." I smiled as I ignored each message, focusing instead on my laptop. What Grace didn't know, what no one knew except Mom and me, was that our most popular recipes weren't actually part of the bakery's assets. They were my personal intellectual property, registered under my name 3 years ago when we first started expanding. The green tea croissants that made us famous, my recipe. The black sesame souffle that had food critics raving, mine. The celebrity favorite red bean brioche, all mine. Time to make some calls, I muttered, picking up my phone. First call, James Chen, no relation. The real estate developer who'd been begging us to open a location in his luxury shopping complex. James, remember that space you offered us? Is it still available? Emma, yes, absolutely. When can you come see it? How about now? The space was perfect, twice the size of our original bakery, and most importantly, right next door to where the corporate group was planning to reopen our old bakery. The rent was astronomical, but I just smiled as I signed the lease. Next call, Diana Wong, food critic for the San Francisco Chronicle, who'd become a close friend over the years. Diana, remember how you always said I should do a high-end patisserie? Well, I'm finally taking your advice. About time. Need help spreading the word? Just wait 2 months. I'll let you know when. Final call. Marcus Zhang, our former head pastry chef who'd been offered a management position by the corporate group. Marcus, how would you like to be executive chef and partner in a new venture? His response was immediate. When do we start? Over the next 6 weeks, while Grace was busy bragging to her finance friends about her brilliant business deal, I was quietly building something new. Our old suppliers, hearing what had happened, offered extended credit terms. Our former staff, loyal to the recipes they'd helped perfect, left the corporate group one by one to join us. The construction crews worked day and night. The space transformed from an empty shell into a sophisticated patisserie with marble counters, crystal chandeliers, and a glass-walled kitchen where customers could watch our pastry chefs at work. I named it Maison de Rêves, House of Dreams, a tribute to Mom's original dream, but elevated to a whole new level. 2 days before our scheduled opening, Grace finally discovered what I was up to. She stormed into the construction site, her Louboutins clicking angrily on the marble floors. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, waving her phone with its news alerts about the upcoming opening of San Francisco's most anticipated new patisserie. "You can't just open another bakery. We had a deal." I looked up from where I was arranging fresh flowers on the counter. "No, Grace, you had a deal. I never signed anything. And technically, this isn't just another bakery, it's a luxury patisserie. But the recipes, they belong to Sweet Dreams now." That's when I pulled out the intellectual property registrations. Actually, they don't. These recipes are mine. Always have been. The color drained from Grace's face as she read the documents. This is impossible. The corporate group, they're planning to reopen next week. I smiled, arranging another lily in its vase. Yes, I know. Right next door. Should be interesting to see how they do with their, what did their press release call them? Inspired interpretations of our classic recipes. Grace's hands started shaking. Do you know how much I had to negotiate to get that $2 million? My reputation is on the line. Funny, I replied, stepping back to admire the flower arrangement. You didn't seem too concerned about my reputation when you sold Mom's legacy without consulting me. And that's when the first food delivery truck arrived, carrying the ingredients for our grand opening. But what happened next would make Grace realize that selling the bakery wasn't just a bad business decision. It was about to become the most expensive mistake of her life. Opening day dawned bright and clear. I arrived at 3 a.m., just like old times, but this time stepped into a state-of-the-art kitchen that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Marcus and the team were already there, preparing our signature items with practiced precision. At 6 a.m., Grace stopped by again, this time with her corporate group associates. Through our glass walls, we could see them huddled in the old bakery space next door, pointing at our pre-opening line that already stretched around the block. "Those are our customers," one executive hissed at Grace. "You said the recipes came with the sale." Grace's face was a mix of anger and panic as she stormed into our shop. "This is ridiculous. You can't just steal our customers." I looked up from where I was arranging a display of our signature green tea croissants. "They're not your customers, Grace. They're here because they want our recipes, the ones I created. By the way, how's your opening going?" She glanced back at their empty store. The corporate group had advertised Sweet Dreams famous pastries, but without our recipes, they were just selling generic baked goods at premium prices. "You planned this," she accused. "You knew they paid $2 million thinking they were getting the recipes." I smiled, adjusting a perfectly glazed fruit tart. I didn't plan anything. You're the one who sold a bakery without checking what actually came with the sale. At 7 a.m., we opened our doors. The first customer in line was none other than Dehana Wong from the Chronicle, accompanied by a photographer. Behind her were food bloggers, local celebrities, and loyal customers from our old bakery. By noon, we'd sold out of everything. Our sales for the first day, $50,000. Next door, the corporate group's Sweet Dreams sat nearly empty, their display cases full of untouched pastries. That evening, Diana's review went live. Maison de Rives isn't just a patisserie, it's a phoenix rising from the ashes of the beloved Sweet Dreams bakery. Emma Chen has taken her mother's legacy and elevated it to an art form. The famous green tea croissants, better than ever. The black sesame soufflé, worth the 30-minute wait. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. The corporate group is threatening to sue me. They say I misrepresented the sale. I could lose my job over this. I was about to reply when Mom walked in, looking healthier than she had in months. She took in the elegant space, the happy customers, the proud staff. Yeah, Emma, she said, tears in her eyes. You really did it. You made my little dream into something so beautiful. That's when I revealed the final part of my plan, one that would either heal our family or break it apart forever. Stepping into my new office, a far cry from the flower-dusted corner desk at Sweet Dreams, I pulled out the documents I'd been preparing for weeks. Mom, I said softly, I want to show you something. I laid out the papers detailing the new company structure of Maison de Rives. The business is set up as a family trust. You own 30%, I own 40%, and I pause. There's a 30% share reserved for Grace. Mom's eyes widened. But after what she did. Family is family, I said, echoing what Mom had always taught us. Besides, he's about to need it. Right on cue, Grace burst into the office, her designer suit wrinkled and her eyes red. The corporate group is suing for $5 million, she blurted out. They're saying I committed fraud. Goldman is putting me on administrative leave pending investigation. I gestured for her to sit down. I know, their lawyers contacted me this morning. You know. Grace collapsed into a chair. Why aren't you gloating? This is what you wanted, isn't it? Your revenge? I pulled out another set of documents. Actually, I have a proposal for them. Maison de Rives will buy back Sweet Dreams at a fair market value of $1 million. They cut their losses, drop the lawsuit against you, and we get the family name back. But why would you help me after what I did? I walked to the window, looking out at the lines still forming outside our store. Because this was never about revenge, Grace. It was about preserving Mom's legacy, our family's legacy. Turning back, I showed her the trust documents. You're welcome to your share of Maison de Rives, but there are conditions. First, you work here, starting from the bottom like I did. Learn the business, respect the craft. Second, no more secret deals or corporate takeovers. We make decisions as a family. Grace stared at the papers, then at Mom, who was quietly wiping tears from her eyes. I don't know anything about baking. I smiled. Neither did I when I started. But Mom taught me, and now I'll teach you, if you want to learn. Over the next year, something remarkable happened. Grace traded her designer suits for chef's whites, arriving at 4 a.m. to learn our recipes. She struggled at first, burning batches of croissants and over whipping cream. But slowly, she began to understand what I had known all along, that our little bakery was never just about making money. Maison de Rives expanded to 10 locations across California. Our revenue hit $20 million in the first year. The corporate group gladly accepted our buyback offer, and Sweet Dreams returned to family ownership, transformed into our line of premium grocery products. Mom's health improved as she watched her daughters finally working together. She still comes by every morning, offering tips and tasting new creations. Last week, Grace developed her first original recipe, a rose lychee macaron that sold out in hours. The pride in her eyes reminded me of how I felt when I first started innovating with Mom's recipes. I was wrong, she admitted one evening as we closed up. This isn't just a bakery. It's our heritage, our story. Today, Maison de Rives is more successful than either of us imagined possible. But more importantly, we've rebuilt something far more precious than a business empire. We've rebuilt our family. As I write this from our flagship store, Watching Grace teach a new apprentice the perfect way to fold croissant dough, I'm reminded of Mom's words. Success is sweetest when shared with family. The display cases are full of pastries that blend tradition with innovation, just like our family, preserving the best of our past while building something new. And every morning, when I smell the fresh bread and vanilla, I'm that little girl again, standing beside Mom in our tiny bakery, living out her sweet dreams. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing someone a better way forward. And sometimes the most valuable family recipe isn't the one that makes the perfect croissant. It's the one that teaches us how to rise above our mistakes and become better together.